Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows, and I have done another crazy Airwindows style invention, which I'm going to show to you today. It is called Compresaturator, and it looks kind of like this. Now here's what it does. This is not a compressor, and it's not a distortion. It's a sort of crazy, weird hybrid of both. Let's show it off with the cell phone generated Alien Kittens bizarre track. The reason I use this is it has a lot of penetrating sort of synthetic tones, and you can hear what's going on. You can hear any grunge on it or whatever. It's easy to tell when it's being screwed up. It's kind of like this. Now that sounds pretty similar. Not really. I mean, one of the things about this algorithm is it has an effect no matter where you have the volume set. It's always at least slightly in play. But if we turn it up, let me say hello to my cat. You want to be in the camera too, don't you? Yep. Any comments? How much you leave me alone? All right, so that distraction aside, we can turn this all the way up into sort of way where it starts getting much louder. And it's possible to force this into weird behavior, like this. This is some of the crazy stuff you can do with Compresaturator. You can hear that you got that snare there, but you can make it set up so that it's really being choked out. Clampedness tells you how much of it is saturation versus compression. Clampedness is just going to beat up, but you can start bringing clampedness in, and when you bring clampedness in like that, it is bringing in the compression factor. The compression factor is taking effect only on the stuff that is already being distorted. And the distortion is the same sort of ultimate smoothness distortion process that I've got going on in the freebie density. That is the single most smooth and sort of fat and thick sounding distortion you can ever have. And it's always in play. Only at literally zero does it have no effect whatsoever. So what we've got is a saturation that's feeding the compression, and there's always going to be a certain amount of saturation, and the compression is running off of this window. I've got it labeled expansiveness because that's what it sort of does, and we're showing how many samples this is. Since this is such a big buffer, it kind of needs to run off of a given number of samples. So if you are using some super high sample rate, you're going to be able to reach down here or whatever. It'll be doing much the same stuff that you do up here. But note that it is an exponential kind of curve there. We've got around 1,000 samples in the middle, and then all the way to 5,000 all the way over at the end, and a very small amount up here. Now here's something else that I can show you. If you have expansiveness very low, it starts to behave more like just a kind of compressor. Like this. Very smooth. And as we bring it in, you can hear it starts bringing it down very nicely. In fact, it sounds kind of like the raw signal. You can hear it's doing something, but it's pretty well behaved. Now, when you start bringing expansiveness up, you're widening the window, and what that does is the compression is being calculated over a window rather than with time constants that are going up and down, and it's also dynamically shifting. It's got one of those automatic release control kind of thingies going on. But the way that works is it is adding a sample to the window when nothing is happening, when the signal is not over a threshold and it's sort of releasing and letting go. And it removes the sample from the window when it is essentially compressing and it's over a threshold and it's making it more. What that means is when you've got it going on a very slow expansiveness like this is a real slow one, as you heard before, when we bring in the input drive, it will start doing that crazy pumping thing, which I'll show you here. Listen carefully to what that's doing. The way this works is by activating itself only on stuff that's already distorted, stuff that's already clipped, but the clipping is an incredibly soft clip. What that means is, depending upon how you've got it set, you can distort the front edge of a percussive wave and compress the back edge of a percussive wave. And we're exaggerating it here, but you can shape that all you want and do amazing, amazing things with the shape of the sound. We're going to look at the snares and the kicks and things right now. You can hear this pumping the front off. If I tighten the expansiveness, you'll notice I just took the front edge off the wave doing that. And the reason is it's reacting faster, and it's reacting fast enough that it's able to clamp the front edge of the wave before you really get a sense of it. It's still there, but it's taken the point off of the wave when it's reacting this fast. Now what I'll do is keeping it clamped as hard as it possibly can. And remember, this is for blending it with the distort equality. You can have it very clamped and sort of pumping away like crazy, and then turn it over into the distorted quality and it won't be pumping at all. Instead, it will be distorting really hard, and then dial in the amount that you want. But what we're doing is we're showing you how it latches onto percussive signals. And as such, I'm going to take expansiveness and start bringing it up to a larger range, a wider range of samples, at which point you'll start seeing the front edge of the wave again, like this. Now with this, you can hear the front edge of the wave very easily. We've got it all rigged up. We can pull clampiness back a little bit. And that's very loud. And then when we pull input drive down, you heard what it was doing, right? This weird sort of pumpy business. Well, if we bring it up to around 0 dB and don't push it into 12 dB of gain reduction, what we'll hear is a sort of accentuation of that flavor of punchiness. And we'll hear it now. Now it is in effect even at this setting. Even at 12 dB down, you can kind of hear it. And I can make it be 0. And you'll hear a slight change as I cut it in. And that might serve as a pretty decent glue kind of thing. Now bear in mind, if expansiveness is very small, it's going to behave like it's constantly trying to compress things. You have to have a large expansiveness to get a lot of variation in the swing of this stuff. But at a fairly large expansiveness like this, even when we have the amount that you're slamming it relatively small, and notice that I've got it set to minus 0.3, and that's what you get on the output. It's real good at refusing to let peaks through, because it is essentially a saturator. It is essentially a distortion. It just takes what the distortion is doing and sort of feeds it forward so that it's capable of turning its own gain down and restricting how hard it's grinding. But you'll hear now what it's doing as far as adding a little bit of glue to the sound. This is dry and wet. And what we can also do is give it, say, 2 dB a gain, and then you can hear what it sounds like when you start pushing it a little harder. This is dry, and we just brought the lows out in a very interesting way. You hear that? Now that's useful. And I can adjust where the lows are coming out on those kick drums. If you listen carefully, you'll hear that the kick drums jumped out and everything else kind of sounded like it was the same volume as before. And that is exactly what we can tune and dial in using things like the expansiveness and clampness control. Like this. You can make it a little spikier. And that's a good big kick drum. Or we can pull it in a little bit, and it will probably tone the snare down slightly. See, it's sort of sitting on the snare a bit. And keep listening to the kick. Now we're changing the flavor of the kick and how round it is. Like that's kind of dry. That's not very expansive at all. It's kind of flat. But then we bring it out. You can feel the size of the kick expand a little bit, and then more. There's an area in there where it swung very nicely. So. This is kind of compressy, so I'm going to try backing the clampness off a little tiny bit. We'll jump this back so that we don't run out of time. That's full crank. Just a little more gain. Now compare what that did to the kick drum. We just dialed this in to a place where the kick is still pretty full. It's kind of under control. It's not as hyped as it was with the large expansiveness, but it got a lot bigger than it was. And we're going to go between the dry signal and Compresaturator dialed in to just expand and fill everything up a little bit. This is dry. Listen to that kick. There have been some people lately who have been doing, interesting and somewhat controversial plugins that are all about like hyping out your percussive attack and the dynamic factor of everything, and everything is supposed to be amazing and wonderful and punchy. I think this is pretty good at maximizing punchy. Let's just take a moment and just stick expansiveness up to a fairly high factor, maybe clamp it a little bit. Remember, you can use these descriptions to identify what you want in the sound. Like if it feels a little bit too squished and you want it to be less clamped, you pull it back and you get a little more of the distortion effect out of it. If it feels too distorted, you probably want to go more clamped. It doesn't have to be 100% all the time. It'll still work without it. And again, expansiveness, if everything feels kind of confined you can bring up the expansiveness and everything sort of gets bigger and more exaggerated and hyped out. And we'll just give it about nearly another dB or so. How does this grab you as far as a magic bullet plugin that makes everything be bigger and punchier? Listen to the kick drum. This is dry. Oh, and we also have a dry wet. So you can dial something in that's maybe a little exaggerated and then blend it. But this is dry. And now we drop the bomb. Off. Bake. Compresaturator is $50 like all the other AirWindows plugins. It runs on PowerPC machines, believe it or not, but it is 32 and 16-bit Intel. It's an audio unit, so it is for Macintoshes, but there's a bunch of different Macintosh programs that can use audio units. And, well, it does this. I think it's very successful. And though it doesn't have normal attack and release behaviors, what it's got acts in a very interesting way, I think. So if this style of handling dynamics and the shape of percussive sounds works for you, then I hope you enjoy it. Please go out and buy it, because there's nothing quite like it. And that's my favorite part of all. Thanks.